Welcome to Betting Weekly WTA, the women's tennis betting podcast, brought to you in association with Bet Rivers. We're at the quarter-final stage of the Australian Open. Two-time reigning champion Aryna Sabalenka is still going strong, as are Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff. But Elina, Rybakina and Jessica Pegula are among the big names who have fallen by the wayside. I'm Rory Jiwani. With me, as ever, is Nigel Seeley. First of all, how are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, Rory. I wish the betting was a bit better this week. It's been a shocker of a week for me. Last week was an excellent week, and this week's been awful, and mostly at the Australian Open, actually. Started off poorly. My hopes were on Rybakina, and then she got that back injury, and I was feeling really confident, actually. I thought she was serving well, looking good. I thought she could trouble Swiatek, but then the back injury came, and then she just, she was always going to be second best to Madison Keys, so it's been a tough week. Really, really difficult one.
It happens, but hopefully we can get back to winning ways. I mean, let's look at the tournament so far. We did all right on the match bets last week. Clara Towson and Shui Zhang among those coming up trumps. Yeah, the futures has been a bit of a shocker. I lost Victoria Azarenka in round one, my Q4 pick. Then Naomi Osaka pulled out injured after she beat Karolina Muchova. That was against Belinda Bencic. Rybakina. So I was supposed to be flying up to Scotland on Friday. And my flight was cancelled, and they rebooked it for 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. The good thing about that was that I got to watch a lot of the tennis before I got on my flight. And I mean, it was Emma Navarro against Ons Jabeur, and Navarro, as she's done all week, somehow getting through a three-setter. You know, she's done it in every match so far. And then Rybakina, I mean, she took a medical timeout after 3 games, and it became pretty clear that she couldn't move very well from side to side. Yet Yastremska just was still trying to hit winners against her injured opponent. I have to say, it's perhaps the most tactically inept performance I've ever seen from a professional tennis player. All she had to do was take a bit off her shots, and Rybakina, she couldn't last very long. And you saw like the penultimate game went to God knows how many deuces, and Rybakina, she looked finished, and she got through it because Yastremska just didn't do anything. And the match against Keys this morning, I mean, her physio must have worked something, because she managed to win the second set 6-1, but then she went down in the third. I mean, I only saw some of the highlights, but I suppose with Rybakina, it has been, an issue down the years, hasn't it? Her injury record.
She's had problems with injuries, illnesses. As I said, I thought at the start of the season you would get her fit, and you might have an opportunity at a big price in a very, very easy quarter, as you've seen by who's come through that quarter. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be, but it's been the tale of all the men's and the women's in this tournament. The amount of people who are withdrawing, retiring, injured. I mean, we're only at the first major of the year. The season only began for 2 weeks. I think I've never seen so many retirements and withdrawals from the tournament than that I have in the opening major of the year. So, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think they're going to end. I think there's going to be more. We've spoken about Emma Navarro. I mean, she's running on empty. There could be some more in these quarterfinals, because these players are losing a lot of energy to get here, and they've had on the back of a very, very, very long season the season before, but incredible amount of retirements. Osaka, as you said, no good for us with a retirement. Rybakina, no good for us with a retirement. Men's tennis so far, game bet match, Sean Calvert's had 5 players who have retired on the futures market already, on the outright markets. Dimitrov got through the semis in the tournament before the Australian Open, retired. It's unheard of, and unfortunately, it's going to be getting worse as the season goes on with the amount of tennis that these players are playing.
Absolutely. And for me, then when Rybakina, when she finished that match against Yastremska, she got through, looked like she was doubtful for the next match. I thought opened up for Paula. And she won. I think when I got on my flight to Edinburgh, she was a break-up in the first, got to the other end, and Elina Svitolina's turned it around and won the third set 6-love. So that was us done. Well, that was me done, certainly, in the outrights. But it's been a tough one. And I echo what you say about the injuries. I've never seen anything like it. You'd expect players to be fit, but they haven't. And And it did feel like a very short break between the seasons. Maybe they need to have a rethink because this just isn't good for anyone.
No, really isn't. And yeah, I don't think they will because the scheduling is lucrative. The money they were playing in Dubai just after the season in exhibition. Some of the big players, Saudis coming into the tour as well. Traveling, it's just something's got to change because there's so many injuries and it's been evident in this major, and it's going to get worse when we go from that change from the hard court to clay very quickly. That's when there's a lot of withdrawals, and you're going to see the same in the French Open as well, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, there are 8 women left in Melbourne. We can take a look at the outright market. Aryna Sabalenka plus 150 favourite. She's been the favourite all along. Iga Swiatek has shortened up considerably. She's plus 160. We talked about the bottom half being easier, and she's been in pretty rampant form. She dropped just one game against Elina earlier today, and before that she dropped just one game against Emma Raducanu. Coco Gauff, $4, the third favourite. Madison Keys at $10 after knocking out Elena Rybakina. Paula Badosa, $28. Elina Svitolina, who's been a bit of a surprise package this tournament. She's $33. Emma Navarro, $45. And Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, the outsider, at $66. Should point out these are win-only markets, no each way anymore. Does anyone take your eye there, Nigel?
When Rory, if you're planning a trip to Melbourne and you're a single guy, when Rory said these are the only 8 women in Melbourne, he actually meant that in the tournament. You know, if you're going out there, these aren't just the 8 women in Melbourne. If you're going out there with a couple of mates and you're single looking for love, then Melbourne may still find you love. Really, it's very hard to look at the value. I mean, the Iga Swiatek price has absolutely crashed because of her form. You know, the most games she's dropped in a match is 7 in the first round. She's lost 2, 1 and 1. 3 6-love sets in the last 3 matches. She's been absolutely incredible, and she's going to run into Navarro, who, you know, what she got left, you've got no idea. And then Madison Keys or Elina Svitolina. So the reason why she's plus 160 is because she's more or less certainty to make the final, in my opinion. That said, Sabalenka has to run into Gauff, potentially, and then they've got some quite difficult matches to get there before they get to the final. And if Swiatek plays Sabalenka in the final, she's probably going to be not much shorter than the plus 160 you see there, probably about maybe plus 130. So, really and truly, if I was looking at this market now and I wanted to bet on it, she's been a player that I couldn't have at all through tournament, but I think the only person I could possibly bet is Iga Swiatek at the price at plus 160, because I think she's certain to get in the final. And if she goes up against any other player other than Sabalenka, she'll be a favourite. So if you get Sabalenka beat, you could get a plus 160 shot as the favourite. If she plays Sabalenka in the final, she's probably be a tad shorter than that anyway, probably a slight little bit less. Like I say, so on the prices, you know, if you're taking Sabalenka, she's still got to come through a match against Pavlyuchenkova. She's still got to come through a match against Gauff, and then she's got Swiatek. So the plus 150 to me is very low. Coco Gauff, Sabalenka stands in her way, and Badosa, which isn't going to be easy. So I think really now, if you're looking at it, I know she's absolutely crashed in the price, but I see nothing stopping Swiatek getting to the final.
See, I do remember, I think it was 2 years ago at Wimbledon, and I think, you know, it looked like Swiatek had an easy path to the final, and Svitolina knocked her out. And the thing with Swiatek, yes, she's been demolishing these opponents, which she does. I mean, this is what she does at a lot of majors. You know, when she's up against inferior players, I hesitate to use the term flat track bully, but she does steamroller them. But when she comes up against someone that bit better, you know, she doesn't find it so easy. And even today, it's Elina, which I really thought she'd get the double bagel, and she didn't. But when Lise held serve in that second set, there was just almost, you could just see a tiny wobble from Swiatek, where all the shots she'd been making.
Holes there, Rory.
I know, but
she's run
all the shots she'd been making, all the shots she'd been making, suddenly the radar just went off a bit, and it hasn't played particularly fast at all. It's played pretty much as Melbourne normally does. The service hold percentage is 66%. pretty much bang on, and last year was 66.8. So, it's not, it's not significantly different from how it's been in the past.
But it's very cool next week, Rory. If you look at the weather, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, cool. Rain Thursday, Friday, 19 and 21. Wednesday 20, Saturday 23. That plays into Swiatek's hands even more. It's not a hot conditions.
And it's been cooler in the evenings as well, quite considerably so. I think the players have been commenting. So, but can you see Swiatek beating Sabalenka or Gauff in the final? And Gauff's won their last 2 or 3 meetings now, I think it is.
I'm purely saying it from a value perspective. I mean, I'll have to look at the final and I look at the breakdown of the match and give my. But if she's playing Gauff in the final, she won't be plus 160. No. And if she's playing Sabalenka in the final, I don't think she'll be not far off that price anyway. But I just think that how can she not? I don't see any way she's not getting to the final. No way. And that's why I think she's probably a bit of value. And then if you do get someone in the final, I don't usually like to hedge, and I don't think hedging is a great thing. But on this occasion, you've asked me for a value play, and I'm doing it purely on the price rather than any real thought or any conviction behind it. But if I'm just playing the price, then I'll probably look to hedge and guarantee a profit if Swiatek got to the final. So that would be my only approach here. I've got no real. I wouldn't have a bet personally myself, but if I was given a free bet, Rory said to me, listen, I've got 200 quid. I want to have a bet on someone and I want to make money. I said, well, back Iga Swiatek now. She'll get to the final. We'll trade out. That would be my strategy now.
There you go. So no official pick, but that would be Nigel's way of thinking. I think without the each way, I think with win only, it's very difficult to make a bet. I do have a bit of a sneaking feeling for Svitolina, but
again,
maybe you could trade out getting to the final.
You're better off betting her each match.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Svitolina's going to be a massive price she's going to be a big price to beat Key. She'll be a massive price to beat Swiatek. She'll be probably 6-1 to beat. She'll probably be 5-6 to 1 to beat Swiatek. If she gets to the final place, Sabalenka, she'll be 5-1 again. So you look at a bigger price than the 33 to 1 there. The treble in those 3 matches, or each match individual, will be over 100.
50, wouldn't it? Or 60, yeah. Yeah, certainly. Moving on to the matches. The first one up, Coco Gauff against Paula Badosa. Coco Gauff, the favourite, quite a heavy favourite at minus 360. Badosa plus 285. The spread is 4.5 games and total games 20.5. Gauff leads the head-to-head 3-2. Their last meeting was in the Beijing semi-finals, and the American won 6-2 in the third, and then she steamrolled Karolina Muchova in the final. I watched that match in Beijing, thinking Badosa could have won that, but Gauff has been much improved since. Badosa's last win over Gauff was in Madrid in 2023 when Gauff was having a real slump, and then of course she came back to win the US Open. What have you made of them so far? I mean, Gauff, she dropped the first set to Belinda Bencic, but then was really good in the second, and Bencic was gone in the third. Badosa hasn't been extended too much. Both their last 2 meetings went to 3 sets. They both would have cashed on overs. Do you think that might be the way to attack this?
Yeah, I think Coco Gauff is the player that I think she thrives, as I said this before, when the pressure isn't really on her. And I think she's just got under the radar. Everyone's looking at Swiatek. Everyone's watching Sabalenka. And she's just under the radar. She's had a perfect start to the season, 9-0. Wasn't beaten in the United Cup. Like you said, beat Swiatek in straight sets. Her route here has been fairly comfortable. I know that Bencic lost a set there, but nothing to worry about. But this is I mentioned in the start show of the year the players that I want to follow this year and look out for them. And Paula Badosa was on that radar because she was up to number 2 in the world. She was a mainstay in the top 10. She had a terrible season last year. We saw signs of improvement from her, and she was getting better and better as the season went on. And she started this year in great form. And she's given Gauff problems before, i.e., I actually have the head-to-head 3-3, but I don't know. I've got Badosa winning in Madrid in 2023. I've got her winning in San Jose in 2022 and Indian Wells in 2021. So I've got it 3-3. The one thing that I do know is in the 6 meetings between the 2 players, that Paula Badosa has got off fast in every one. She's won 5 of the opening sets in those 6 matches, including the last 2 matches in 2024, where she won both first sets, and Gauff came back and won. She won 6-4 in Beijing in the first set, 7-5 in Rome in the first set as well. The Beijing court will be probably a little bit quicker than it is here. I don't think there's any preference for either of them. I think probably Gauff will like the conditions a little bit more than Badosa, but I think they'll both be okay with the conditions. And I look in here, I mean, I was very tempted. If I'm going to have a bet here, I think Gauff will win it. Maybe 2-1 Gauff, which will bring in the over 22.5. But a prop with Bet Rivers, I just thought maybe a little bit of value is Badosa to win the first set, which is plus 205. You can look at any way you want to go, really. If you want to go over 20.5 there, but it's a lower price, which is minus, I think it's minus 115. Is it minus 115 the over? Minus 113 the over 20.5. So you could play in a lower odds there. But if Badosa wins the first set, the underdog wins the first set, then 9 times out of 10 the over cashes. And if you're playing the overs, you want Badosa to win the first set. So plus 205, Paula Badosa to start fast and win the opening set would be the way that I would play it here, rather than take the over 22.5. It's only a lean for me, but that would be my lean. Or 2-1 Coco Gauff. I think she'll come back and get through, but she does start very quick, Badosa, in this tournament and all year, and in her head-to-heads against Coco Gauff. Like I say, she's won the first set in 5 or 6. So Badosa to win the first set plus 205 would be a bet that I have, and that match serves off later on tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. But Badosa to win the first set would be the angle of attack for me.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, for me, I can't get Badosa's collapse against Emma Navarro at the US Open out of my head in the quarterfinal. She was absolutely flying in the second set. She dropped the first. I think she was 5-1 up in the second, and then the wheels came off. And it's not the first time she's done that in a slam. And I just feel like she's very vulnerable in a slam when the pressure's on. But I do like the overs games. I mean, I was looking at over 21.5 games at plus 110. That would only be a lean for me as well. But I think it's closer than the odds suggest. But like you, I do expect Gauff to get through into those semi-finals. We'll move on to the second semi-final, Tuesday, 3:00 in the morning Eastern time. Aryna Sabalenka, the 2-time reigning champion, against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova. Sabalenka, heavy favourite, minus $10. Pavlyuchenkova plus 650. The spread, 5.5 games. Total games set at 18.5. Pavlyuchenkova has a winning head-to-head against Sabalenka. 2-1. And correction, you were dead right. It was 3-3, Gauff and Badosa. I've just forgotten to flick the button down to reveal the last match on my drop down. But Pavlyuchenkova 2-1 up. She's been the underdog in all 3 previous meetings, twice in 2021 and once in 2019. Their last meeting was in the last 32 at the French Open, which Pavlyuchenkova won on the way to making the final. She actually won the third set 6-love. Sabalenka hadn't looked all that impressive until her last match, but she took apart Mira Andreeva. Pavlyuchenkova came through a really good tight set against Donna Vekic and then ran away with it in the second. Those odds look a bit big for me.
My only concern is that the head-to-head is so long ago. I mean, 2019 and 2021, that version of Sabalenka is nowhere near the version that we're witnessing now and what we see now. In the match in the French Open, she completely went after the second set, served a huge amount of double faults, and that was when she had the yips on her serve. She's a very, very different opponent now. And Pavlyuchenkova got nothing to lose. She's got a free hit. She's going to come out and have a go. She'll take the game. She'll get massive encouragement from the fact that she's got that winning head-to-head record, and also she's going to be cheered on by the crowd, because anyone in a major doesn't want to pay top dollar to watch a match that's going to be 6-love, 6-1. So she's going to have some kind of support. That if Sabalenka will be the one that everyone wants to win, but they don't want it to win easy. So I think Pavlyuchenkova has been brilliant this week. She's looked great. She's looked rolling back the years. She's played some great tennis. Donna Vekic, she was brilliant in that match. Took her apart. Really, really good performance. She hasn't really run into anybody like at the top of the game. This is a big jump from what she's played this week. But Sabalenka tore apart Andreeva. Was lucky against Towson. Towson pushed her really, really close, especially in the first set. She was really, really close. Towson, I thought she was the takeout from that match. Towson, I think she's going to go on to bigger things this year, win tournaments at big prices, and have some big scouts. But this is a big test for Pavlyuchenkova. I wouldn't want to get with her on the 5.5 because there is the tendency of a big blowout. But I do think one set could be quite competitive. And if that's quite competitive, then that could bring in the total here. But again, if pushed, I'd go over 18.5 at minus 122 on the total in this match. I don't see Pavlyuchenkova causing a shock, but it would be a real tentative push here to go for over 18.5. Nothing really. People were looking at it thinking, well, I've got really nothing much to lose. 6-3, 6-4, I win. But there is a tendency that Sabalenka could blow her away. If she takes the first set in a tight 1-6-4, there is a real chance that Sabalenka could win 6-1 or 6-love in set number 2. So that's why that line is that price. Probably if you're going to bet Pavlyuchenkova, you probably want to bet a plus 1.5 sets rather than to take a set or something like that, rather than a total, because total could blow out. But I'm thinking I think Sabalenka will win it and lean very tentative for over 18.5, but really no bet for me on this match at all.
Yeah, you see, I quite like the plus 5.5 games. I think she could do it. I think it's just as well in the types of players they are. They have quite similar games. Obviously, Sabalenka hits the ball that bit harder, but whereas compared to say Andreeva, Sabalenka just hit through her. She won't be able to do that against Pavlyuchenkova, and Pavlyuchenkova, if she's finding the lines, I think she'll give Sabalenka something to think about. For me, I was tempted enough by that 5.5 to make it a selection. It's my first selection of this show. Pavlyuchenkova plus 5.5 games, a point, and that's at plus 120. But I definitely take your view. We've seen Sabalenka do it before. Edge a tight first set and then run away with it in the second. I suppose you could be looking at overs games in the first set as well as a possible other market. But I'm going to go for plus 5.5 games for the Russian and hope she puts up a good fight. Moving on to the next two semi-finals. These matches haven't been confirmed timing-wise. I suspect Keys Svitolina would be first because Navarro Swiatek went on till, Navarro certainly went on till quite late on the match just gone. But we'll look at Navarro Swiatek first. Navarro, big outsider, plus $7. Swiatek, minus 11.15. The spread, 5.5 games. Totals at 18.5 games. And, we've said Navarro, she's had a very hard week. She's been on court for almost 10.5 hours. And, Nigel, you said the tank's almost empty. The end of her match against Kazatkina, both players were almost out on their feet. And now she faces Swiatek, who's, the bakery's doing a roaring trade this week. They've got one previous meeting. It was back in 2018, so it doesn't really count. Swiatek won 6-love, 6-2 for the record. I mean, is this one where you would back Swiatek to win comfortably, or one you'd want to leave alone?
This is my only bet, really. One of my strongest player of the four, actually. I'm getting with Swiatek to cover the spread fairly comfortably or easily. And Navarro's got nothing left. I mean, she's a real gritty player. She's determined. She gives 120% on court, and it's going to take its toll. And I think this is the match it takes its toll in. In the first match against Peyton Stearns, that was the absolute brilliant match. If you haven't watched it, it was end to end. It was 6-7, 7-6, 7-5. And after that match, I thought, well, she can't maintain that. Well, she did. She went to the final set against Wang, winning 6-4. She went to the final set against Jabeur, winning 6-4. And in early hours this morning, she went to the final set again against Kazatkina and won 7-5. Now, these aren't the two sets before them haven't been like 6-1, 6-2s. They've been 7-5, 6-4s. I mean, they've been long sets, and she must be absolutely exhausted. And to come out now to play Igor Swiatek, who's won the last 3 matches, has only dropped 4 games in the last 4 matches total, must be so fresh, and he's just blowing people away. And the fact that, I know it was a long time ago, she blew Navarro away with another 6-love set in that as well. It's going to be a blitz for me. I can't see any way Navarro covers the spread. And I was actually very surprised that the spread was 5.5. I thought it would be higher than that. But as you can see by those odds, the 5.5 line is very, very short. It's like minus 177 for 5.5. So I'm happy to play the other line. I'm happy to go up one on the BetRivers website and play 6.5. I think 6.5 here would be better value. Iga Swiatek minus 6.5. I would look for the total games to be under 18.5 here, or even go for another 6-love Iga Swiatek set in set number 1 or set number 2, because Navarro, I just can't see how she can keep going, especially against Iga Swiatek. She's going to be too good in every department. She's going to run around the court, grind her down, and I think she'll be all over the place. My only worry, I'll be honest with you, my only worry in this is that Navarro might call it quits early, and the bet, after set number 1 and the bet doesn't stand, it would be void, because I just don't see any way that she can compete with Swiatek after what she's gone through this week. I've never known a woman to play this long in a major, and now she's run into someone who's just in the top of her game, who's blitzing people. I just think this is going to be very, very, very one-sided.
Yeah, and if you are thinking that it might not go very long and Navarro calls it quits, I mean, it might be interesting looking at set 1 total games. Under 8.5 games in set 1 is plus 118.
Yes,
that could be a bet. I'm with you, Nigel. I think Swiatek covers the spread comfortably, and I've actually gone for minus 7.5 games at plus 200. I don't see, especially with the way Swiatek plays, she's like a wall. She just keeps hitting it back, and she makes the opponent move, and that's going to be horrible for Navarro. She's going to be sort of running back and across that baseline. Swiatek finding the corners. It's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty ugly for Navarro. And I've actually gone for 2 points. Swiatek minus 7.5 games. That total games under 8.5 games for set 1 at plus 118, I think is a possibility if you want to attack it elsewhere.
Why don't I do that then? Because there's no point of us going 7.5 and 6.5, because if we get it wrong, we do our brains on 2 bets. All right. So why don't you take the 7.5 at 2-1 for 2 units, and I'll take the under 8.5 in set number 1 at plus 148. Did you say
118?
118. Well, I'll take that. And you said it, because otherwise there is a tendency that we could both go big on the spread, and we could lose by very close. So we've got a good chance of winning at least one here if we call the script correct. So yeah, I'll do that then.
All right. So you're going first set under 8.5 games, and I'm going Swiatek minus 7.5 games at plus 200. Yeah,
I was also looking at Navarro total games as well. She's 7.5 total, but again, it's minus 175. It's very, very short. Yeah. I can't see her getting more than no player has got more than 7.5 games this tournament against Swiatek. And the only player who's done that this year, I think, is Coco Gauff, and I don't think Navarro in this state, what she's gone through, is more anywhere near capable of doing that. Very heavy price, so I like those plus money bets much better.
So there we go. So expecting Iga Swiatek to make pretty short work of Emma Navarro. Our final quarterfinal, Madison Keys against Elina Svitolina. Feels like we've gone back in time for this one. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to check this before I say it, the head-to-head. I think it's 3-2, but I might have forgotten to scroll down properly.
It's 3-2. It's 3-2. But Keys won the very first time they met, which is totally irrelevant because it was like 10 years ago. Svitolina retired in set number 2. So really, she was injured. On completed matches, it's really 2-2 on completed matches.
Yeah, well, Keys won their last meeting Sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm looking at the wrong match. It helps if I'm looking at the right one. But yes, Keys, Svitolina, two veterans, played each other a few times. They'll know each other pretty well. Their last meeting was in 2022, before Svitolina had her baby break. Keys, she knocked out Rybakina in the last round. She had a lucky escape against Gabriela Ruza in round 2. The Romanian definitely had enough chances to win that, and that was a tough 3-setter, as was the Rybakina match. Svitolina, she came from a set down to beat Jasmine Paolini. She trailed Veronika Kudermetova 4-1 in the first set, and then won 11 of the next 12 games to ease through. The odds, Keys is quite a heavy favourite to my eyes, -195. I think there's been a bit of money for Svitolina, because when I looked earlier, she was +163. She's now +115. The spread is 2.5 games, totals 22.5 games. My worry here, Nigel, is we talked about injuries and players not going the distance. I'm worried about Keys here, just given her track record in slams, particularly thinking about Wimbledon last year when, she should have beaten Jasmine Paolini and then pulled out injured. And Svitolina won't make things easy for her.
No, she won't. I was looking at Svitolina here on the money line at +155. I thought that could be an angle. I looked at the total here at 22.5. I thought that could be an angle, but everything for me is going for the Ukrainian rather than the American on this market here. I'm going to have a very, very small bet on Svitolina to win it, to win the match at +155, because I think the conditions are going to suit her. This is going to be a night match. I would have presumed. I don't think it's going to be not the main night match, but it'll be later on in the day. The weather conditions next week are very, very cool, which will suit Svitolina. Keys needs it quick, and Keys struggled, I thought, to get past her Rybakina. That was what I wouldn't even say at 50%. So I'm not convinced by Keys. I know she's had a great year so far, 11 wins and 1 defeat. That was against Clara Towson again. Won the tournament in Adelaide, but I can never trust her when she gets to. I think she's very temperamental. I wouldn't class her as someone who I would trust at heavy money to close a match out. She gets very, very tight, and I think Svitolina will take a lot of encouragement what her partner Gael Monfils has done this week, who's been absolutely brilliant. He was pushed Ben Shelton all the way in 3 sets, all 3 tiebreaks, and then he had to retire as well. We're talking about retirements again. Gael Monfils had to retire. He's played a lot of tennis. Svitolina hasn't played. She's fresher. She hasn't played since the US Open. Then she's come here and playing like she is. So I like Svitolina on the money line +155. The only worry about the total here is just 22.5. They've met 3 times before in majors, and in 2 of those majors it's gone to a final set, and there's also been a 7-5. 22.5 is a big number, I think, in tennis, because you need at least one set 7-5. You probably need 2 of them to go to 7-5, because 7-5 and 6-4 isn't good enough for you. 21.5 I would have played, but at 22.5 I think that's a big number. And it only in the 3 matches they have played have been quite tight matches. 3, like I say, 2 of them have gone to the final set. Only 1 of them has covered 22.5. All of them have covered 21.5. So 21.5 would interest me. 22.5 doesn't interest me. But I'm just going to have a very small bet, a unit on Svitolina to win on the money line at +155. I've never been convinced by Madison Keys. I've always thought she's a player that, she could have won Wimbledon. She's been a talking player. But when it gets down to the business end, the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals, you can forget the final she played at the US Open when I can't remember who she played, but she was awful, wasn't she, in the final?
Sloane Stephens.
She should have won that. She was terrible. And I wouldn't trust her at the latter stages. So Svitolina, good record, beaten her in the Australian Open before, in a hot year that year as well. That was in 2019. It was a very, very hot match. These conditions will not be ideal for Keys. And she struggled in 2 matches. Rybakina, she come through against Collins, but Collins wasn't at it at all in that match. And I fancy her. I fancy her to come a cropper, and I like Svitolina on the money line at +155.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, I had written down Svitolina to win, and I had her on the handicap +2.5 games at +100. But I'm very happy to leave that one for you, Nigel, and we can have the point on Svitolina at plus 155. So that's it. Those are the 4 quarterfinals at the Australian Open. Probably just run through our bets quickly. Coco, Gauff, Paula, Badosa. I think we were just leaning there. You fancied Badosa first set at plus 205.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. I mean, she has, like I say, in the preview, 6 matches between the two of them. 5 first sets won by Badosa, including 2 matches last year when Badosa wasn't at the peak this year. I think she has to start off fast. That will be her tactic. She'll try to hit the winners and ruffle Gauff up, but eventually I think Gauff will get through. So Badosa to win the first set plus 205.
So is that a lean or an official play?
Go on, then let's have an official play. Go on.
Go
Plus
on.
one unit. But Paula Badosa wins set number 1 plus 205.
There you go. My pick, well, I had a lean on that one at over 21.5 games at plus 110. Aryna, Sabalenka, Anastasia, Pavlyuchenkova. That was my first official play. Pavlyuchenkova plus 5.5 games at plus 120. And then moving on to Tuesday night action. Iga Swiatek, Emma Navarro. We really like Swiatek here. Very much against Navarro, who's been playing a lot of tennis. We've gone Swiatek minus 7.5 games at plus 200. 2 points on that one. And Nigel's gone for the first set under 8.5 games at plus 118. And finally, Madison Keys against Elina, Svitolina. Nigel, both of us really, but Nigel's got the official pick here. Svitolina on the money line at plus 155. So there you have it. That's us looking at the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. We've had a quick look at the outrights as well. And of course, Nigel, we've got the men's competition as well. You and Sean Calvert have been looking at that one.
Yeah, Betting Weekly Game Bet match is now live. Looking ahead to the big one tonight, Carlos Alcaraz against Novak Djokovic. We'll be back again tomorrow and on Wednesday as well in a later edition in the week. Betting Weekly live throughout the week. We'll be covering the tennis as well as the soccer action every day, 11 o'clock Eastern time and 4 p.m. UK with one of the handicapping team here at Because We Win. And it's a big week of soccer as well. We've got the Premier League on Thursday and the Champions League, and all the action across Europe is in midweek as well. And everything is covered here on the Betting Weekly studio. So make sure you subscribe. Last week was our highest ever week for views on the Betting Weekly studio. So thank you very much. And a very, very high week on new subscribers. So welcome along, welcome in, and hopefully we can cash some tickets together.
Absolutely. And of course, you can follow all of us tipsters, all of us making selections on the socials Because We Win on Instagram and Twitter X and anywhere else you like. We'll be there at Because We Win.
I don't think there's a thing called TikTok anymore. Is that thing of the past?
Oh yeah, that's gone in the States now, isn't it?
Thing of the past. So we're good job we haven't got an account on TikTok.
Yeah, so Instagram and Twitter X the way to go. But yeah, make sure you follow up, and as Nigel said, subscribe and like. It all helps with the algorithm as well. And if you like what we do, and even we're not going to pick winners all the time, but we hope we've steered you in the right direction to some bets, and maybe let us know what you think as well. Leave some comments below the line, and we'll try and get back to you, and hopefully we can get some winners as we reach the business end of the Australian Open. Thanks for joining us on Betting Weekly WTA. We'll be back next week. Won't be a grand slam, but it'll be exciting, and we might have some bigger price winners. You never know. Take care.